To support this podcast, go to positivesarcasm.com/donate. Any amount is appreciated. Once again, positivesarcasm.com/donate. Thank you and enjoy the program. Jay here, positivesarcasm.com, recording here from the Spare Parts Studio. Happy Sunday, everybody. I hope you're all doing well. I hope, despite all the turmoil and craziness that may or may not be out there, depending upon how it's portrayed or what have you, I hope you're all doing good today, and I wish you all the very best going into the holiday season, the very best with your health and your wealth and your happiness. Whether you're staying, you're going, you're buying, you're selling, you're renting, you're getting evicted, you lost your job, you're getting a new one, you're holding steady, you're married, you're divorced, you got kids, you don't have kids, you got a dog, whatever. I just hope you I hope you all are doing well on this happy Sunday leftovers. You can find this podcast on pretty much anywhere where podcasts are available. Spotify, the iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Podcast Addict, iTunes. You know, I don't have that $100 million contract like Rogan does, at least for the time being. We'll get into that in just a moment. But in the meantime, you can find me on the social medias. Mostly, I've just been posting and ghosting. I don't really care about looking at the comment section or anything like that. I will reply to a couple of them every now and then. But most of the time, it's just I like to post, and then I ghost, and then I get right back to work. I got a bunch of other shit to do. And luckily for me, since it's getting darker out, it gives me a chance to do some of my nighttime projects that I've been really, really trying to get after because I don't like to, compromise my sleep. But since it likes to get really dark here in the dark here in the Northeast, by like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, then I can start doing some of my cyberpunk projects, some of my nighttime flying, and just some new techniques with new gear. Because with some of my older cameras, which are really nice, they have a problem with filtering noise, such as it's just cameras. Certain cameras react very differently during golden hour when the sun's going down, how they focus when there's low light settings, and then just overall how the quality of the camera and the sensor itself once the sun is all the way down. So these are some of the things I look forward to testing overall. In the meantime, it is now customary, at least for the time being, on the Sunday Leftovers, to read a poem, a hip-hop poem. And I like to just, right now it's by my design only. I have no requests at this time, but I am going to get used to it. But I would like to start off this Sunday Leftovers and every Sunday Leftovers going forward with a poem by some of the world's best. So let me go ahead and get into my favorite setup here, and then we'll go ahead and we'll get into some Spotify news. So let's do it. Today's great poets. I got to do a better job of working on this, but that's okay. It's all right. Rome wasn't built in a day. Okay. I cannot see with these fucking these glasses on. This is ridiculous. Okay. How do I look on camera? Jesus Christ, this is pathetic. All right. Sorry. I'm not with it today. But we're gonna rally, and I'm gonna find words and I'm gonna use them, just like this right here. Okay. Let's see. Boy, this is some terrible stuff. If I had any sense in me, I would actually just cut this entire part out. But that's okay. All right. This is the kind of beat that go wa-ta-ta, ra-ta-ta-ta, ta-ta, ta-ta-ta. Sex me so good, I say, blah, blah, blah. Work it. I need a glass of water. Boy, oh boy, it's so good to know ya. Is it worth it? Let me work it. I put my thing down, flip it, and reverse it. Tis a riv dina till pilf nawad ganat y and toop I. Well, is that Spanish? That is your poetry for the Sunday Leftovers, brought to you by the one great poet, Missy Elliott. So go ahead and look up all her fine works. You can probably go ahead and check her out on YouTube. But that will be that for today. Anyways, let me go ahead and move forward. Wanted to get today's Sunday sermon out of the way. So the elephant in the room, obviously, in the podcasting world and in the land of free speech and censorship, is definitely not my podcast. At least not yet. But for the time being, we're going to focus on the elephant in the room. In that case, the TRT elephant, which is Joe Rogan. I generally don't like to talk about other podcasters here because it's really, number one, it's mainly not my place. And number two, I'm just trying to focus on my own thing, and I don't try to get into celebrity news. And maybe this is just a thing about, what do you call it? Just celebrity gossip in general, and just general drama that, well, is not going to matter in the long run. Well, this kind of does. It's a current moment in time that needs to be paid attention to. Because when it comes to censorship, you know very well on this and on my website and with the works that I do, I don't filter out anything. If I feel something's necessary to temper down because I don't want to just go for shock value, I want to try new concepts and things like that. And whether or not it may cross a line with certain people or what have you, that doesn't really matter to me. If you don't like this podcast, or you don't like my website, or you don't like my commentary, or my YouTube channels, or anything positive sarcasm related, or if you don't like me in general, well, you don't have to talk to me. You don't have to subscribe to my channel. You don't have to recommend it. You don't have to watch my videos. You don't have to check out my movie reviews. You don't have to associate with me on a personal level in any way, shape, or form. You can literally act like I don't exist. And then that's it. I won't care. You won't be annoyed, and everybody will be fine. However, some, according to several articles recently, some of the employees at Spotify have raised serious concern over Joe Rogan and his guests. Joe Rogan, if you don't know, is probably one of the largest podcasts and definitely one of the most valued podcasts on planet Earth right now. He signed a gigantic deal just a few months back after he left California. Him and several other comedians and other actors and other known celebrity types and business people have recently just left California for the likes of Tennessee, for the likes of Texas, for the likes of New Jersey, for the likes of Wyoming and Utah and Alaska and North Carolina and pretty much anywhere that isn't New York or California. So why did they do this? For tax purposes, for freedom purposes, for value of property purposes, for the fact that California is on fire, that they're passing stupid laws. And however, one of the largest companies out of Silicon Valley or in the San Francisco world is Spotify. Spotify decided to give Joe Rogan a giant. They wanted to bolster their podcast arsenal by giving him originally reported $100 million, but let's face it, there's probably way more rights and values and bonuses and other things related to that. So as of like December 1st, Joe Rogan's podcast will be exclusive to Spotify. Simple as that. There may be some clips on YouTube and things like that, but you know what? It does suck for Google or YouTube because they're going to lose a lot of views and a lot of sponsorship to Spotify. Unless something happens in the next couple months with this situation, because it was originally, I think this was more of a data issue where there was a lot of data and a lot of episodes to upload from Spotify. Several of them were missing. Several of them, you know, from Michaela Peterson to Alex Jones. Some of them just weren't uploaded for some reason. We still don't know exactly what happened. Obviously, JRE's world is not saying anything. They haven't said anything. Rogan generally doesn't overreact to situations unless it's so in your face. He just recently finally reacted to people not liking his studio. But hey, I mean, I personally am not a huge fan of his new studio in general, but we're just getting used to it. And, you know, I don't have to, just because I don't like his new studio as much as his old one. I still appreciate him trying something new, and I have my own studio and I have my own stuff. He doesn't have to like mine, I don't have to like his, and then again, he doesn't know who I am, and he doesn't know about my podcast, he doesn't know about my website, and he doesn't need to. He's far more focused on creating a giant empire, building a new club, and getting settled in Texas, and I wish him all the best, and I love his podcast. But the whole Spotify thing is becoming an issue because now, apparently, according to a lot of it, including Sputnik News, several Spotify employees are really upset about Rogan because they can't control his content. If you're a fan of listening to podcasts, or if you're just a fan of comedians in general, you'll know that comedians generally don't give a fuck whether your feelings are hurt or not, or if the guests they have on their podcasts are maybe, quote, controversial in some eyes, or if something you say something that you don't like and it triggers you, it makes you upset. That you have no say over that whatsoever. But this is an issue, it's a concern to me. So in May, Spotify here's the basics of it. All right. Spotify signed a contract worth at least $100 million to a color commentator, a comedian, a podcaster, and all-around freaking media giant right now, Joe Rogan, to bring his entire library. And that's what Rogan said in his original post. His entire library, all the videos, all the podcasts, were going straight to Spotify. They had according to him, they have no control of the podcast, no control of the guests, none. He's not an employee. He's just simply making his content exclusive to that platform. Simple as that. There was a lot of backlash, though, and some issues, apparently, according to the articles, that some of his stuff was not being brought on board, like maybe like an Alex Jones episode or something. People got pissed, and now we're on to this thing where, including some of his full library, but the demands, let's see, although some demands have already been met by the company's management, including omitting multiple past episodes, such as interviews with Milo Yiannopoulos, Gavin McInnes, and Alex Jones, who are all considered to be far-right commentators, even though I would argue otherwise, the workers remain dissatisfied, vowing to make high-profile walkout or strike, according to the outlet. The workers are reportedly demanding the company grant them the ability to edit or remove parts of future interviews in the recently bought podcast, or even ban the upload of the whole episode that would be considered problematic. In addition, staff demanded the right to issue warnings, make corrections, and fact-check Rogan's material. According to Digital Music News, the Spotify management rejected further demands by the staff, arguing that Rogan's content does not violate any of the platform's guidelines. So, here's the problem. I would see it, I could easily see in a situation like this, even nowadays, where a company, depending upon the outcry or the backlash or the whatever, or the strikes, of them censoring or making alterations to Rogan's content. I could see that happening. There's two problems with that. I just see it because companies right now are caving everywhere. They're just caving to the masses of just hysterical people who have Twitter handles. Now, I also see it from a different perspective. So they could do that. They could, just because they could find a loophole in it and say, well, here's the loopholes we're working around. But here's the facts. There was a contract signed, and that contract was signed by somebody who has a lot of money and probably has some really solid lawyers and talent acquisition people and agents and publicists. Rogan is no fucking fool. So if any alterations or any censorship or any editorial changes were to be made to his podcast that we found out about, I'm assuming if he is the man of his word, which I believe him to be, I would think that there would be some major legal issues to them doing that. So for some reason, if him and his producer and anybody else, they make an episode and they upload it and Spotify censors it or doesn't allow it to get uploaded, I'm sure there would be some legal ramifications to the entire contract. You can't violate a contract unless you find a legal loophole on it, but I'm pretty sure there aren't any. And they would say, the thing is a lot of companies are putting hate speech clauses and what do they call them? Freaking diversity and inclusion clauses in their contracts and stuff. But the thing is that's a massive lawsuit. If you are going to bring somebody on for $100 million plus to your network, have them exclusive, and bring all those people over, you better bring the cake, the cherry, the ice cream, and the motherfucking candles. Because if you don't do it and people smell something foul, they're going to go ape shit. And I'm pretty sure Rogan in this point would have legal ramifications, severe legal ramification, and would be able to either A, sue over the rights of his contract, or B, be able to opt out of the contract, or whatever legal ramifications he is capable of. And I'm sure right now he doesn't want to piss off Spotify, and Spotify doesn't want to piss off him. Now, right now, Spotify has, with the exception of the episodes that have not been re-uploaded for some reason, said that he hasn't violated any terms and conditions. We are listening, but we're not giving you we're not giving you editorial control of Rogan's podcast. You can't do that. You don't have legal right to. If they did do it, it would compromise the integrity of the podcast, and people would no longer listen. People at this point, their time, it's not about money, it's about time. Time is valuable to people. And if they feel like their time is being manipulated or censored or fucked with in any way, shape, or form, people will bail. And Rogan wants to remain authentic as possible, whether you agree or disagree or see things from a different angle with him. The guy's a commentator. He's a UFC commentator. He's a comedian. He's a podcaster. He's a health and wellness hobbyist. And he's one of the purest souls that we have out there right now in our podcast universe. You know, you have the likes of Mark Maron, you have Adam Carolla, you have all kinds of people out there trying to do great work without having to appeal or deal with the bullshit of the corporate world. Podcasts and comics are pretty much all we have left. The mainstream stuff is pretty much useless at this point. But there's another issue I'm having with this is, okay, Rogan, could opt out. Yeah, he could sue. He could do all kinds of different things. It's $100 million, though. He just bought a $14 million house in Texas. He's got plenty of money. So if he was to bail on the whole Spotify thing, regardless of whatever happened, he would be perfectly fine. He would be perfectly fine. He'd probably make some adjustments for here, there, or whatever. But Rogan's always been fine. He's always got plenty of cash. And his podcast itself, as far as the clips that are generated, his comedy revenue, his UFC stuff, he makes plenty of cash. So he never has to worry about that. It's just like, this is a different level of money. He'd be next level rich. That's the thing. So there's that. There is that to consider. I mean, obviously, I don't know. I'm just speculating on an issue that is currently of worry to me. Because if they can censor him, like back in the day when you had the patent trolls, the podcast patent trolls, that went after Carolla, they went after Maron. If Adam Carolla did not step in the way of the patent trolls and spend $500,000 fighting those assholes, they would have gone after Maron, who doesn't have the money to fight them, and they would have got after Rogan, who was just hitting his stride. And this was back when Rogan was at like episode 3 or 400. 3, 4, 500. So it would have hurt his pocket to fight them seriously. And Carolla was the only one who was out there to raise funds to fight them. But if they wouldn't have done it, they would have rolled right over the whole podcast community, and it would have been a serious issue. Now, where were those patent trolls out of? Their address was Texas. Oddly enough, where Rogan just moved to. So if they were to censor Rogan, that would be a serious issue. Now, look at this. Yeah, the Spotify employees have a right to complain, but is it justified? I mean, if you work for Spotify, how much do you think the low-level guy makes? What's the average salary reported for Spotify employees? So do you think if you are in the bottom basement of a Spotify employee, like the sales planner for that matter, reported that they make $44,000 a year, up to almost $70,000, whereas a production manager, software person, makes between $80,000 and $160,000 a year, and the senior software engineers make over $100K to almost $200,000 a year. So these are the average employees. They're also the data scientists, which make over $100 to $150,000 a year. The software engineers, the data engineers, the machine learning engineers, who all work at Spotify, who all make a ton of money. So where is it justified for them to complain? Really? It sounds like they're spoiled. It sounds like they're easily triggered. It sounds like they're just little soft babies who need something else to complain about. And if there's enough of them, they want to threaten to strike. You realize if a bunch of these people, I don't know how many it is, 12, 100 of them decide to strike. Well, okay. If you realize if you strike and you make a big deal out of it, you understand if you strike, you don't get paid. And if you don't get paid, you can't, well, then how are you going to pay your bills? How are you going to pay for your $3,000 a month San Francisco apartment or wherever the fuck Spotify is? And the thing is if you decide to strike, is Spotify going to bring you back? If you decide to remember, if you go to work, if you decide not to go to work and you're contracted to go to work, you can be fired. It's called job abandonment. All right? And I don't know if Spotify has a union or if it even matters. And remember, there are people out there that really need jobs right now, highly educated people that are looking for jobs, that are fleeing these areas, that can work remote and work for Spotify and be more than happy to jump on board if you decide that Rogan's podcast or any podcast is just too triggering and you decide to walk out. Well, maybe they'll just replace you. Maybe they'll just replace you and get rid of you altogether. So I think that for the most part, it's like, why? What is it? It's just more bullshit. And you understand, like, they paid $100 million to this guy. I think they intend on keeping him on in a happy place. I don't think this is a person you want to piss off. And he doesn't generally show the heaviest of emotion or anger in his episodes. He's generally pretty even-keeled. He doesn't immediately like to talk shit. He's pretty reserved. He wants everybody to get along. I think the last thing you'd want to do, the last time he was seriously pissed off at a company when he was talking, when he mentioned he was talking to that YouTube employee where she was talking about hate speech and stuff, and he said he got really heated. But I think it's important, like, if they can censor his podcast, they can go and create algorithms to censor any podcast on their platform, including mine. The thing is I don't want my podcast censored. I would rather pull, if they were censoring, if iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, which is going away, any of these podcasts where the feeds are sent, if any of those companies were censoring my stuff, I would pull the feed from those networks. I would just do it. I would rather stay true to my roots than censor or filter my content in any way, shape, or form to appease them. I know my lane. I know where I work, and for me, it's very hard for me to do this podcast. It is. It's very hard. Sometimes it comes out, I'm on fire, and everything's clicking, and I got the words right in front of me, and all my stuff is properly set up, and I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about the world's biggest bridge. I'm going to talk about Jeffrey Epstein comments. I'm going to talk about this, and I'm going to have some fun, and I'm going to giggle about that, and world's loudest bird. And then there are days like Sunday Leftovers where it's the second podcast of it's the beginning of the week. I'm a little slow, and it just sometimes it isn't there. And I'm trying to, this is my way to speak to the world and better my ideas in my head. And sometimes I just want to get out there and spit stupid so that when the stupid's out of my head, the smart stuff can grow. So and that's where I get some of my great ideas, by just doing this. But it's a lot of work, and it keeps me challenged. This podcast keeps me challenged, and it shouldn't keep me down. I shouldn't be worrying about, like, I already have enough stuff to worry about, like making sure that the recording is going right, making sure that the video upload is good, and a whole bunch of other things. Now, it would be another issue just to create another problem on top of that. I wasn't allowed to talk about this topic. I wasn't allowed to use these words. I wasn't allowed to have these guests. I already have rules on my podcast as far as the formatting. No religion, no politics, no sports, and no religion. Now, I'm kind of pulling back a little bit on the religion somewhat because I like talking about customs and culture, and religion's part of culture. Politics is no. That's a flat no. I don't like talking about it. It's just a pool of mud that you can't wade through. And it's dirty. It makes you feel gross. That's why it's not discussed in this podcast. Maybe because I'm not experienced in it. Number two, I just don't like it. It's too deep of a conversation to have. And I think there are better podcasts out there for it. Whereas I like to talk about other things. I like to talk about the time we almost nuked the moon. I like to talk about music. I like to talk about movies. I like to talk about culture. And, I like to try different concepts out and read articles about health and wellness, stock market stuff, to help you make money, to maximize your dollar, saving cash, current events with me, promoting my YouTube channel, and other things that I'm doing. I'm not here to appease my friends if I have any fucking friends. Give them shout-outs. Say hi to my mom. She was here. I promised her I'd have her on an episode, and I had her over the phone and in person. But why? Because I wanted to, not because somebody told me to. Because I wanted to do that. Because you know what's great is no matter what, like my dad was never here to sit down in the guest chair. He wasn't. He never had that opportunity because in the later years of his life, I think he just gave up. And it's sad because he was a prototype for what could really be a better man. He really was. There was a lot of strength in him, but there wasn't that something else, the something else that I have that he at least allowed me to search for and understand and be better than him. That's what you want. You always want to be better than your parents. But you don't want to be better than your parents and then look down at your parents. You want to appreciate the opportunities that they gave you so that you can be a better person. But my dad was never able to sit down here and just talk for an hour and tell me police stories and stuff. And that sucks. It sucks a lot. But, I mean, I have his picture here. I wear his ring. I kind of jokingly emulate his style of clothing with the stupid glasses and the fucking jacket and his ring, his silver ring, and his picture of his 1985 Chevy Z28 Camaro that I'm still looking for. So he's still here in a way. But I did get to have a piece of history. My mother was here. She got to sit here and talk about things she knows and things she understands. And I didn't try to steer the conversation. I asked her about things she knows about. And I let her be her weird, normal, Jewy self. And that's what you got. And she understands things on a level that, well, just on a different level in general. She understands kids. She understands education. She understands compassion. She understands some nutritional things that I don't generally have to deal with, but she does because whatever reason. And I have that now. And you can always go back and watch it. So I have that. But to have to worry about making sure that her microphone sounds good, the recording is going well, but then I got certain subjects I can't talk about because some Spotify employee is going to be really upset that I had somebody who has this viewpoint of this religion, of this culture, of this mindset, who may or may not have voted for this person or that person or done this in their past, or maybe said the N-word once when they were in fucking, 10th grade. I mean, who the fuck knows? At the end of the day, who fucking cares? And apparently these Spotify employees care a little too much about their own self-interests, and they just need something to complain about. My thoughts to them are fuck you. My thoughts to them are, fuck you. You make a ton of money. You should be very fortunate that you work for one of the largest tech companies in the United States that can broadcast all over the world. And I have access to a wonderful product for free. That's what you do there. And you want to complain that somebody who started a podcast from the ground up with basically nothing much but a Ustream and his best friend Brian Redban, and to turn that into something that's valued at a bare minimum $100 million? And then after you censor him and cut his content and ban that, are you going to come for other people too and ban their stuff and threaten a strike? And are they going to cave? And are they going to come for me? Are you going to go look at my past episodes and be pissed that my mother said something about fucking children today and how they're so fucking spoiled? About how you're practically babysitting instead of teaching kids about the history of the Holocaust, you're just babysitting them and worrying about whether or not they're going to get triggered and called their fucking lawyers? This is upsetting to me because I really am concerned about where we're going in the next couple months and what's going to happen. And are people going to die because we are so fucking selfish and stuck indoors and not willing to appreciate our neighbors? I got neighbors. I got lives. I got responsibilities. I have loved ones. I have relationships. And I have neighbors. Neighbors who I may not even speak the same language, come from the same culture, the same viewpoints on things. But I take a pass on things because I want the community of people to get along. I want my neighbor. I got a gay neighbor. I got a left-wing neighbor. I got a Spanish neighbor. And then I got a neighbor who walks around with no shirt on and looks after his chickens. And you know what? They're all nice to me, or they're at least pleasant, and they mind my space. Because I'm nice to them, and I present a peaceful area where they don't look at my space and be like, that's a shit person with a shit place and a shit car and a shit lawn. It's like, no. This is what we need to do, is create an environment where everyone's at peace. And we're not doing that right now. We're constantly threatening to strike, threatening to protest, threatening to cancel, threatening to sue, threatening to burn this building down, threatening to kill this person or cancel this situation or walk out of our job. We're not in any position to be threatening to do anything right now. Everybody should be kind of focused on their objectives in life. I've said what I want to do, but I'm not threatening to go after anybody. You understand that there are ways of winning battles without saying a single word or firing a single bullet. You simply just leave the battle. There's no more battles for me to fight in this town. I'm leaving spring of next year, 2021. I'm leaving this town. I've been here for fucking 13 fucking years, and I can't do it here anymore. And it's not because of my neighbors, immediate neighbors. I have some very nice people around me. But I don't like the scenario of what's happening in these cities, and I'm in a position to leave and take a chance and move to a place where I've been working on, dreamed of living near and in since early 2000. And now I have the chance to fulfill my dreams because I worked at it. You guys can do the same thing. If you're spending so much time on social media and spending so much time complaining about this person or that podcast or this deal or that thing that triggered you, you're not going to go anywhere in life. You're not going to accomplish anything in life. You're not going to do anything. You're just going to be a fat fucking amoeba. I said something. I said something very similar to "Make love, not war." A few days ago, I dropped it on Facebook just as a quick quote. And it was basically like, if you're not romantic between the sheets, you're romancing blood on the streets. I.e., if you're not fucking, you're fighting. And I think that due to people's diets and people's love lives and people's health and wellness, I think there's a lot of fat and sad and weak people out there who just aren't experiencing romance with other people. And I think it's causing them to be depressed and be emotional and be angry and just want to fight everything they see and just be heard in a different way because they don't understand love or compassion. They're not feeling that. So they're just upset all the time and pent up. And then you throw racial tensions on top of that and bad education on top of that and bad parenting on top of that and bad health and wellness on top of that, and then the cherry on top, you throw a fucking pandemic that's been completely, misconstrued in so many ridiculous ways, and then it just these people that are just basically act like they're fucking over inbred have just snapped, and they're threatening, and these people are I don't know how the fuck they got employed at Spotify to begin with. But they're threatening to strike. If that news is even accurate. I don't know if it's 2 employees or 200. But I personally think that if you Spotify employees strike over Rogan's content, I think you should all be terminated from your job. Because that's what I think. You're not fulfilling your duties as a worker. And you're showing a poor example of what Spotify employees do. So, or maybe those are the same thing, I don't know. But I think it's a shit thing to do where somebody has worked so hard building an empire, in some ways out of spare parts, out of a crappy Ustream channel, and now turned it into the largest podcast in the world. And this is what you want to do. Somebody builds themselves up, and you just want to tear them down. Because that's the playing field that you like. You like everything equal, equity. That's not how things work. Granted, you do have to make sure that inequality doesn't spin in the control. Otherwise, crime goes through the roof. That's statistically true. But you pay for innovation through inequality. The people who produce most of the shit go to the top because they're ambitious. So I hope this works out. I hope it just fades away and it's no longer an issue. I hope a lot of things kind of fade away and they're no longer an issue and everybody calms down and things sort of sort themselves out. But I don't think that's the case. I just see too much here, and there's too much news agencies and journalists and people and social media psychopaths that are just throwing gasoline on this fire. And eventually it's just going to encapsulate all of us and fight, and it's going to be like a giant firestorm. And it concerns me. And I just want to escape it before people start to eat each other. So, that's the end of this podcast. I'm fucking tired of seeing stuff like that, and I really try to focus on other things. Like, I want to talk about the time we almost nuked the moon. I want to talk about other Q&As. I want to talk about my love for Star Trek. But, I don't see good things coming on the horizon. It truly concerns me about this whole Rogan thing because I see something far more sinister right behind it. If you give a mouse a cookie, they're going to want a glass of milk. And then they'll tip it over and they'll blame you for it. And I just see this thing spinning out of control. You are the CEO of Spotify. Tell your employees to shut the fuck up, sit down, do their job, and if they strike, you fire their fucking asses, you replace them with more capable people, and you move on with your day. And say, we don't accept that type of behavior at Spotify. We commend Rogan and the rest of our podcasting crew and whomever else we sign on our platform to do their jobs and perform for the money that we pay them. And that's it. You don't like it? Fuck off. Go find another job somewhere else. Go work for Apple. Anyways, that is the end of Sunday Leftovers. I hope you all understand the point of views that I'm trying to come from and trying to work through all these things. There's a lot here to take in. There's a lot to understand in such a short amount of time, but I'll try to keep this brief. In the meantime, if you have questions or comments or concerns, you can email me directly. You can just go to positivesarcasm@outlook.com. That's my direct email address, specifically for Positive Sarcasm website. I've got bit my lip earlier. You can email me for questions, comments, posing music for bodybuilding shows, my movie reviews, questions. If you want to be a guest on the podcast, you can email me directly. If you want to just sip coffee and see how the podcast runs, you can there's a casting couch to my left-hand side of me, out of screen, so you can witness how this thing works. Also, if you wanted to subscribe to this podcast online, you can go to Positive Sarcasm Podcast on YouTube, and you can subscribe and see all the videos and the clips there as well. If you like my other stuff, like my wedding vlogs, my travel vlogs, my rants or raves or whatevers, and my concepts and my shorties, you can go to Positive Sarcasm on YouTube. Those two are also on there. You can like and subscribe and share both. If you want to donate to the podcast, Positive Sarcasm at Outlook.com. And, of course, if you want to subscribe to this podcast as a regular podcast audio version, you can download it or stream it directly from my website or iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play Music, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Podcast Addict, CastBox, Podbay, anywhere where podcasts are available, you can download them here. No filter, no censoring, all free for you. But if you want to subscribe and donate, it's extremely important. Thank you to all who are listening and watching and subscribing. I will talk to you all on Wednesday. Thank you all for listening. I will talk to you all soon. Recorded here from the Spare Parts Studio. This has been a Positive Sarcasm presentation. Clean it up, people.